You are not limited. You have been conditioned to believe that you are. From an early age, someone told you that genius is a rare gift, that mastering various skills is the privilege of a select few, and you believed it. You grew up hearing that there is such a thing as natural talent, and that if it's not in your DNA, the best you can do is settle for the basics. But that's a comfortable lie. Comfortable for a system that prefers you not to discover how far you can go. The truth is that the world is full of intelligent people living mediocre lives, not because they lack ability, but because they confuse knowledge with action. They spend years accumulating courses, watching videos, reading books, and remain the same. They are addicted to passive learning, but they don't have the courage to put their learning to the test. They shy away from mistakes as if they were failures, when in fact it is mistakes that sharpen, shape, and accelerate any real progress. What if I told you that anyone, including you, can learn like a genius? I'm not talking about cheap tricks or miracle formulas. I'm talking about a real process that transforms the brain into an adaptable system, capable of quickly absorbing information, connecting different areas, and generating results that seem impossible to those stuck in the traditional learning model. Imagine mastering multiple languages and conversing with people from completely different cultures, creating projects that combine programming and design, or applying philosophical concepts to solve business problems. Imagine being able to look at a challenge and, instead of feeling intimidated, see it as a puzzle with pieces you already have, just waiting to be put together. The secret lies in how you learn, not how much you study. It's understanding that each new skill is not an end in itself, but a tool that can be combined with others to create something greater. It's abandoning the learn-to-know mindset and adopting the learn-to-apply mindset. It's integrating, testing, making mistakes, adjusting and repeating, until knowledge ceases to be theory and becomes instinct. You don't have to wait for the right moment, the perfect motivation, or the feeling of being ready. Those who master multiple areas didn't start out that way. They started out unprepared, insecure, and that's precisely why they learned faster. While most wait, they act. While others study just to accumulate knowledge, they study to transform. And that's exactly what you're about to discover: how to adopt the mindset, habits, and practices that transform ordinary people into masters of any skill they decide to learn. It doesn't matter whether you believe in your potential today. If you follow this path, you will soon realize that genius is not a starting point, but a state you build. What separates those who seem to learn anything with ease from the rest is not a secret gift, but a specific way of looking at learning itself. Throughout my life, I have realized that the brain is not a safe with limited space, but a malleable muscle. And the more I challenge it, the more it grows. Neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity, the ability to create new connections and strengthen existing ones. This is the foundation that allows me to explore different areas, from languages to technical skills, without feeling like I'm spreading myself too thin. But understanding this ability is not enough. I needed to create an internal and external environment that was conducive to learning. I discovered that quality sleep is not a luxury, but part of training. That proper nutrition affects my mental clarity. That time management is not about doing more things, but about creating space to absorb, review, and apply. I eliminated digital distractions, established deep study blocks, and started treating my focus as a precious resource, not something available for every notification. That's when I discovered methods that transformed the act of studying into something exponentially more efficient. Spaced repetition showed me that memory is not built all at once, but cemented little by little. Active recall forced me to stop passively rereading and start reconstructing content from memory, reinforcing each neural connection. Interleaved learning, in turn, broke my habit of studying a single topic for hours. By alternating subjects, my brain learned to make unexpected connections. And the Feynman method taught me that if I can't explain something simply, it's because I don't really understand it yet. This approach led me to a turning point, realizing that accumulating knowledge without connecting it is like having loose pieces of a puzzle. I started crossing ideas from different areas, applying concepts from linguistics to programming, business strategies to music, design principles to writing. It is in this intertwining of fields that innovation arises. It's not about being an expert in everything, but about building bridges that few see. But no theory has value if it doesn't cross the border into the real world. I stopped waiting to be totally ready to act. I started learning by doing, making mistakes, and adjusting. I applied new languages by talking to native speakers even with limited vocabulary. I tested business theories by launching small projects. I built tools before mastering all the codes. I discovered that constant practice transforms knowledge into instinct, and that continuous improvement is more powerful than seeking perfection before you start. Today I know that the secret is not to be born a genius, but to cultivate relentless curiosity, intellectual humility to recognize what I don't yet know, discipline to repeat until I master it, and courage to put it into practice before I feel ready. Learning multiple skills is not a privilege of the few. It is a daily choice of those who are willing to connect, apply, and evolve without stopping. As I deepen this journey, I realize that my mind does not evolve solely through the accumulation of information, but through deliberately confronting my comfort zone. It is easy to stay in the territory I already master, but real growth requires me to go where I feel incompetent. Neuroplasticity is not activated in comfort. It flourishes in challenge, controlled frustration, and deliberate practice. When something seems impossible, that's when my brain starts to reconfigure its circuits. That's why I've learned to value discomfort as a sign of progress. When I try to learn a language and get stuck when speaking, it's not failure. It's my brain working to turn insecurity into skill. When I study a new tool and get lost in its features, it's not a waste of time. It's a map forming in my mind. I've come to understand that beginner's anxiety is fuel for growth, as long as I don't run away from it. I've also realized that discipline isn't a prison, but a liberation. When I establish clear routines, I don't waste energy deciding if I'm going to study or practice. That energy is directed toward how and how much. I've created non-negotiable blocks in my day for knowledge absorption and specific times for review and practical application. That way, even when motivation fails, habit keeps the process alive. What's more, I've learned that learning shouldn't be a solitary endeavor. Talking to people from different fields expands my repertoire of connections. I've refined programming ideas by discussing them with musicians, and I've learned about leadership by listening to stories from athletes. It's at the intersection of worlds that creative solutions and rare perspectives emerge. This insight has also shown me that to master multiple skills, it's not enough to simply accumulate methods. I constantly need to reevaluate my approach. What is working? What needs to change? Where am I stuck? Intellectual humility forces me to admit that even efficient practices lose their power over time if they are not adapted. The most surprising thing is that by integrating these experiences, I began to see invisible patterns. Mathematical concepts helped me understand rhythms in music. Narrative structures have facilitated my communication in technical presentations. This intertwining of areas has convinced me that genius is not a destination, but a continuous process of connection, adaptation, and application. Over time, I have come to understand that the key to accelerating this process lies in how I organize and revisit what I learn. I discovered that my brain retains more when I am active in the process, not just passive. That is why active recall and spaced repetition have become pillars of my routine. I don't wait to forget in order to review. I review before forgetting sets in, reinforcing neural connections like someone who strengthens a bridge before it cracks. Another decisive element was interleaved learning. I realized that alternating areas of study creates a cross-pollination effect. When I study programming and then dive into philosophy, my brain is forced to look for connections between distant concepts. This transition, which once seemed confusing to me, is now a source of insights I would never have had by studying each area in isolation. The Feynman method completed this trio of transformative tools. By explaining a concept as if I were teaching it to someone completely unfamiliar with it, I quickly discover gaps in my understanding. It's not just about simplifying, but about proving to myself that my understanding is solid. When I find a gap, I go back to the content, restudy it, and repeat until the explanation flows clearly. These practices have also taught me that learning is more fragile than it seems. It only takes weeks of distractions and superficial tasks to lose momentum and depth. That's why I adopted a system to protect my time, turning off notifications, setting fixed times for social media, and establishing clear boundaries for activities that drain focus. The mental space I gained was invested in what really matters. But protecting time isn't enough. You have to honor it with intention. When I sit down to study or practice, I know exactly what skill I'm developing and how it connects to my larger set of skills. This avoids the trap of accumulating irrelevant knowledge and ensures that every minute has a clear purpose. This alignment between method, focus protection, and clarity of purpose has transformed the way I learn. Today, I don't study just to know. I study to integrate, to apply, to create something new from what already exists. And it is in this integration that the learning curve ceases to be a slow line and becomes a leap. It was at this stage that I realized the difference between learning and accumulating. For a long time, I confused progress with quantity. I thought I was evolving just because my list of completed courses was growing, because my bookshelf was filling up, because my notebook folder was getting heavier. But knowledge that is not put to the test rots like stagnant water. It loses strength, clarity, and purpose. True transformation happens when I take what I have learned into the real world, even if imperfectly. That's how I created a rule for myself. Everything I learn must be tested as soon as possible. When I was studying a language, I didn't wait until I felt ready to speak. I made appointments with native speakers, even if I stumbled and made basic mistakes. When I delved into programming, I didn't spend months studying syntax. I created small functional programs, even if they were full of limitations. When I read about business, I wasn't content to imagine scenarios. I launched micro-projects, measuring their real impact and accepting that some would fail miserably. This attitude revealed something to me that no book makes clear. Early mistakes cost less and teach more. They act as an unfiltered mirror, exposing flaws that isolated study would never reveal. More than that, they force me to find solutions under pressure, which exponentially accelerates the development of practical skills. That's when I realized that the secret isn't in accumulating random attempts, but in turning each experience into a cycle of continuous improvement. After applying something in the real world, I go back to review every detail. What worked? What broke along the way? What could have been done with half the effort? Often I realize that progress doesn't come from more study, but from adjusting how I apply what I already know. This mindset is exactly what sets those who master multiple areas apart from those who merely collect certificates. True masters don't wait for perfection before taking action, nor do they settle when they achieve a reasonable result. They live in a state of permanent prototyping, testing, failing, analyzing, and recalibrating, as if each project were just another step toward something bigger. I started to see each idea as a laboratory. The end result still matters, but not more than what happens along the way. It is on this journey that unlikely connections, creative solutions, and the confidence to dare more on the next attempt emerge. And when this vision becomes part of who you are, the fear of failure no longer paralyzes you. It becomes the fuel that drives you forward. After years of applying this mindset, I realized that learning is not a final destination. It is a continuous state of movement. Each new skill is not a trophy to be displayed, but a new lens through which to see the world. And the more I connect these lenses, the more clarity I have to create, solve, and innovate. If you've made it this far, it's because you also feel this restlessness. This refusal to accept that your potential is limited to what you already know. You want more, not just to accumulate, but to integrate, apply, and transform. So here's my invitation. If this journey has resonated with you, click like and subscribe to the channel. This isn't just to receive new videos, but to make a commitment to yourself to continue expanding. And if you want to take it a step further, consider leaving a donation of any amount. That's how we keep this content alive and accessible, so that more people can break through the barriers of superficial learning and dive deep into this process. Now write a word in the comments that reflects your decision to evolve. It could be discipline, focus, or unbreakable. Choose the one that best represents who you want to become starting today. This will be your anchor, a public reminder that you're not just watching but committing to the practice. Because in the end, learning isn't just about knowing more. It's about becoming more.